Dr. Jazz.
But cool, yeah. Thanks so much for taking the time. You know, I put on a special shirt, so.
All right, yeah, there you go. I'm from Virginia. That's right.
I know, that's why.
All right.
No, but you know, I've talked to so many guys you played with, and you know, of your drummers of your generation, and you know, other players, older and younger, and you know, kind of really happy to add you into this group. You know, it became like a personal obsession to talk with all of you amazing musicians. Like, as a musician and a music lover, also, you know, I just love hearing all this stuff that you guys did, and and
What do you play? You're a musician too, right? What do you play?
yeah, I'm a guitarist.
Okay, great.
Yeah. That's you know, I played with some guys you recorded with Donnie McCaslin and John Abair and some of other guys.
Oh, okay,
Lots of players,
yeah. Great, man.
yeah.
Great.
So, but I wanted to ask you one thing. You know, I have you at home on so many albums, and you've done like work as a sideman, 300, 400, you know, a lot of work. And, you know, I was looking a little bit through my records, and then I noticed like in the same period, let's say you did a record with Chris Potter, Vertigo, then you did Archie Shepp, then you did like, I don't know, Franco Ambrosetti with John Abercrombie. So basically like all these different styles. And I wanted to ask you, how do you prepare for projects like that? Because you're like a modern jazz chameleon, you know, you can do anything. You're like,
well, I don't know about that. No.
I don't know. I mean, when I listen to you, you're like, you know, musically as a drummer, you're like a team player. Always, you sound to me, you serve the music, and on any record I hear you, whether it's like really written out stuff with Carla Bley or odd meters with Chris or straight ahead, you know, or how do you prepare, or did you prepare for all these projects? What's your you know, story there, kind of?
I don't know. I don't think I prepared. Well, if you know, I mean, when you say prepared, if you mean did I shed the music prior to the recordings, or did I have a rehearsal? I mean,
yeah, I mean, like
everything is kind of different, you know.
Yeah, how does your mindset change from a project to project? Because you know they're so different, the stuff that you did.
Well, I guess the preparation really was just being who I am, and absorbing the things that I liked, maybe you know, maybe stylistically, throughout the years. You know, I'm not, I guess you could say I never have really belonged to any like clique.
Yeah,
I don't know if you know what that means. Clique.
Yeah, sure, I know what you mean. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I never really have been like a guy that, or a person that's like only associated with these people that do this, and they play like that, and they play in this place, and they don't go over here, and they don't, you know, I never. I'm kind of a lone wolf in that regard. You know, because and I don't mind. I mean, and I guess in some ways it's a detriment, and in some ways it's a plus, because people like to identify, or people like to define musicians by, oh, this guy's he does this, so
Exactly.
he wouldn't be interested in this, like that. And of course, everybody has things that they want to do, and everybody has things that they're, maybe more interested in doing than others at certain times in their playing, longevity of their playing. But I guess honestly, I'm 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 interested, and I've enjoyed, and I'm influenced by a lot of different types of styles of, I guess, if you want to call it jazz. Yeah, okay, let's call it that. And so a lot of different styles of jazz, and that's been the case, for as long as I can kind of remember, because and of course, there's a lot of things that I really like that I just I don't feel like I probably don't feel like I would fit, and I probably don't feel like I would do well at playing. So I can admire those things from afar and still enjoy listening to them, and going out to hear that's kind of stuff, or whatever it is, but I don't feel like I want to participate, but I can really enjoy it from just a fan's point of view, or a listener's point of view, like that. And so that's in there too, I guess, because there's so much stuff that I do like that I don't feel like I could play, but I still enjoy it. And then there's stuff that I guess I've listened to, and then when the opportunity arose, then I just said, well, okay, that's something that I wouldn't have solicited that, but I'll do it because I like I like that music, or I like that person's music, or I like, whatever, what I mean? So that's kind of, and so from having a varied listening experience throughout my life, with records by this person and that person, and they couldn't be further apart from each other than but still, and so I guess that answers the question, as to how I would prepare. And I've always wanted to be um, I've always wanted to be a, a professional. Um, I always admired those people that were professionals. They um, you know, I don't know. I don't want to call names, because but people that you see in the most unlikely places, but there they are, and it's not, they're not, it's not, a feeble attempt, or a facsimile thereof. It's they're putting all their energy and know-how and feeling into it, so, and if that's, that's probably the most honest way to participate, you know what I mean, in whatever things that you're doing. So I try to do that, come from an honest place, and try my best, and that's that's kind of it.
Because like, I wrote to you. I remember. I think it was in 2004. You played in Ljubljana.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
With who?
With Carla Bley, and Steve, and Andy, and I remember watching you. We played before you, and I remember watching you from the side, and you just like you know, you serve the music so well, because when I listen to that gig of yours, and then, you know, you go on YouTube and there's like Trading Force with Sonny Rollins, let's say, couldn't be musically more different, but yet you serve the music incredibly at the highest possible level on both, you know, on both musical situations. That's why I wanted to start with this, because that's like, it's rare, I think, you know, that you can do such a variety. It's that's a beautiful thing, you know.
Well, I don't know how rare that is, because I can think of so many.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So many, like, if you're just talking about drummers that like somebody like I'm going to start calling names. No, like somebody like Victor Lewis.
Okay. Yeah.
Like,
Sure.
He's like such a model of
somebody
who's, you know, can play with
anyone.
Oliver Lake, and then play with David Sanborn. I mean,
for instance,
two quote unquote jazz saxophone players, but which one is jazz and which one? I mean, which you know, if they, you know, they couldn't be more different in terms of which required of the drummer to play with those people, with those styles of music. But I mean, you know, that didn't seem to be any kind of a hindrance for somebody like Victor, who honestly can just, you know, bring it with on both sides, you know. So, and I've always admired those kinds of people, you know, and there's many others, you know. I'm just somebody right off the top of my head, but you know, and then there's people that do what they do, and in their wheelhouse, they're just unbelievably incredible. So it doesn't take away from people that don't.
Oh no, definitely.
Cross, you know, because, but anyway, that's kind of, you know, that's kind of, the thing is like, I think it's just an honest, it's you know, because there's things that if somebody called me to do, and I just knew that, man, I'm not prepared for that. I'm not capable of that, as much as I love it, and I wouldn't want to waste their time, you know. With me, you know, struggling, you know, through something that I know they're not going to be happy with, you know. And there's, you know, and there's 100, 200, 300 other people that could jump in there and do that. So, you know, it's all music, you know.
Definitely.
And if you can. And if you want to do it, then you'll figure out a way to do it. And if you like it, you know, you've got to like it too. You've got to really, you know, you know, and all of the stuff that we play, you know, you play and I play or whatever. You know, I tell people, you know, especially young students, that if you don't love it, it's going to be hard for you to excel at it, because there's not necessarily any kind of tangible rewards that you get from it. It's more about, you know, your own self-reward for just participating and creating some music.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and then, you know, what happens after that is not in your power. You can't make anybody like it. You can't make anybody dislike it. You can just do it, and it's there, you know. It's like food, you know. Like
True. Were you like that already as a teenager? Like, you know, let's say, I don't know, mid-70s when you, or early 70s when you started discovering jazz, like, you know, that you were like really going in all directions regarding drums or jazz drums?
Well, I guess this is kind of what I'm saying. It's like, I was in a place that didn't have anyone saying, don't listen to that, because that's not hip, or that's not whatever, and listen to this because this is the only, you know. I didn't have that, you know. So I was kind of left to my own devices in that regard. But at the same time, people would turn me on to stuff. I mean, and that's kind of how it was back then. I mean, people would just turn you on. Hey, man, they come over to your house with a record. Hey, man, check this out. It's like, oh, wow, what's that, man? Oh, man, this is, whoever, Okay, put it on. Yeah, I like that, man. Oh yeah, who's playing on? Oh wow, yeah, man, that saxophone player is great. Who's that? Oh man, I gotta get something else by him, or whatever, and once you see something that you or hear something that you like, you just go for it. And if nobody's trying to deter you from it for whatever reason, their own personal reasons or something, then you just do it naturally,
Yeah.
And especially prior to like now, everything is just blah, everything's right,
Yeah, it's too much almost.
It's very daunting, to try to figure out what do I listen to? I've got all these choices. Back then, even though you had choices that were different, it was slower to get to them. You didn't know what the next record was going to be out until it was in the stores and you bought it and brought it home and put it on.
Yeah.
You didn't know what was coming. There was only like maybe print literature, magazines or something that told you who somebody might be or who somebody is or who somebody blah 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 blah. But that was all these things were it took a minute to find this information out, like print publications or the library or somebody telling you, and so it was a slower process of figuring out what it is that you liked, or just becoming aware of some music, and then if nobody's telling you don't do that or don't listen to that or that's not happening, then you make up your own mind, and then you don't compartmentalize.
Exactly.
You just like, I like that and I like that, and so okay, great,
No, it makes sense.
So that's kind of what was happening, and especially back in those days, and because there was all kinds, like in this, like you mentioned, the 70s. In the 70s, even though I've seen people of note say things like in the 70s jazz wasn't happening or jazz was dead or whatever, I disagree, because that's when I was really kind of sort of coming of age buying recordings, and there was a ton of stuff happening, man. There was,
definitely,
I mean, just in terms of like, you had all these records coming out on different labels that had a certain identity, CTI, okay, Strata East, and then ECM, and then, and they're all completely different from one another in terms of, the aesthetic, the style, whatever, but all really good, all really good, and many more. I'm just picking off the top of my head. Those three labels, that had a pool of musicians that kind of, and some even crossed over, like somebody like Jack DeJohnette. You see him on a zillion ECM records, but you also see him as the house drummer on a zillion CTI records.
Exactly.
And the music couldn't be further. And he could have jumped right into Strata East if he had been on any of those. I don't know if he was. I don't remember him being on any, but he certainly would have fit right in with that. And a lot of his contemporaries were on that label. And so,
But did you check Like this, you mentioned ECM. Like already, did you check out those guys, like Jon Christensen and stuff
Oh,
like that? Like,
absolutely,
oh, really? Oh,
absolutely,
wow. Oh, wow.
absolutely. Absolutely, man. I
Oh,
probably have. Yeah, I probably have. Yeah, I mean, Jon Christensen. Are you kidding, man? He was. Yeah, I mean, all the stuff that he did with Keith
yeah.
and all the other things that he did later with Bobo Stinson and
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Wow.
yeah, Jan Garbarek and Ralph Towner and whoever,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I even have other stuff that he did with, prior to that with Kuhn and different people and
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, I mean, and that was the time, the '70s. Some of those masterpieces were made,
Exactly. Yeah.
and he was on several of them, quite honestly. And so yeah, but then at the same time, there's Stanley Turrentine records and stuff,
Yeah.
Freddie
Yeah.
Hubbard records,
Absolutely. Yeah.
all that, so, and that was, McCoy had a unbelievable bands at that time,
Yeah.
and Clifford Jordan and the Magic Triangle and with Cedar and Higgins and then of course, there was the jazz rock that was
Yeah.
brand new music, um, with
Yeah. All the Mahavishnu and
with
everything.
jazz musicians that had gravitated towards this new
Yeah.
sound because that's what they had, they were of that age, they were jazz musicians, but they were younger, and so they were influenced by the energy of
Yeah.
what was happening with the electric instruments and the synthesizers and all that sort of thing. So all of those people that were playing in those bands were all quote unquote jazz guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they
Sure.
were
Definitely.
but
Yeah.
they were young, so the music that young people like them were listening to might have been a little bit more on the other side of music, and
Yeah.
and coming out of Miles's Bitches Brew and Lifetime and all that, which started all that kind of,
Yeah.
and so it was a natural evolution. But then you trace them back, and it's like, well, oh man, the drummer with Mahavishnu was with Horace Silver, Stanley Turrentine.
Yeah.
The drummer with Weather Report the saxophone player Weather Report was with Art Blakey.
Yeah.
Whoa, the piano keyboard player was with Cannonball. So it's all just like, and it's like,
It's amazing. Yeah.
yeah. And then at that time, that music was new. You didn't know what the next Weather Report record was going to be, or
Yeah.
who the
That's amazing.
personnel was going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that. Yeah.
Every time the record came out, it was a different drummer.
Yeah. They changed. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, who's this guy? Yeah, who is this? Who's Eric Gravatt?
Eric Gravatt.
Whoa,
Yeah. Exactly.
whatever, like that. You know what I mean? I thought it was going to be Muzan. He's gone, and then the next thing you know is Narada Michael Walden or something. It's just like whoa.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah. It's when I hear you talk about that stuff, for me it sounds so romantic of buying a record. When I tell to my students, even then when I was a teenager, I bought CDs, right? So you got pocket money, and I went to the store, and you cherish that one album that you bought, like like oh man, it was a whole procedure putting it on, reading the booklet. And nowadays it's just like many times people hardly make it to the end of the first song many times, whatever, not listening even, of course, not to the whole album like the younger generation. So that's
different. Yeah, different times, man. Different time, man.
Bizarre, but yeah, that kind of explains your this what you mentioned, this variety. Amazing. Yeah. Otherwise, I wanted to ask you, Billy, like when you, like, in the mid 80s or early 80s when you came to New York, how was this decision made? On what did you base that decision, and how was it like to you in the beginning? I mean, I know immediately then you catapulted into all these incredible groups and musicians, but like, how was this initial story?
Well, I've told this story before. I guess what happened was I was not living in New York. I was living in Virginia, like your T-shirt, and I was playing in a dance band, like a top 40 dance band. We call it top 40.
Yeah.
It was like a band. We had a gig at a club 5 nights a week playing for people dancing, and we played music that was, the hits that were on the radio. We learned 2 songs a week that were the hits on the radio. It could be Prince, it could be Huey Lewis and the News, it could be, Duran Duran, the Pretenders, Billy Ocean. I mean, it was, this was the 80s, early 80s. And so, but I had taken that gig out of the need to earn some money,
Sure.
basically. I mean, I had been just kind of freelancing, playing quote unquote jazz up until that point, but that wasn't satisfying economically for me, nor was it satisfying musically for me, because it was peppered with just doing little things that weren't gonna what's the word? I'm not trying to be negative about it, but it was, stuff that wasn't stimulating to me, music.
Some added value, let's put it like that.
Yeah, so I decided that, okay, when this opportunity came up for me to be a part of this band that, first of all, had work, steady work. It was not jazz at all, but the musicians were really good musicians in the band. And so I knew I wanted to move to New York. And I knew that if I had kept doing what I was doing prior to that, it would just be like a dog chasing his tail. I'd never get out of that cycle, because I would never, financially, I would never achieve what I wanted to achieve to enable me to uproot myself and go somewhere where I didn't know what to expect. In fact, so after I did that, and I did it for about 3.5, 4 years, this top 40 dance band gig, and I had a great time. It was great. It was, like I said, the musicians were great, and I made some great lifelong friends, and I enjoyed it. And it was happening. It was actually really, really good, and it enabled me to save up enough money so that I could. My idea was to move to New York, because I didn't really have any connections here, except for the fact that while I was doing this gig, I was able to, on my 2 nights off a week, an opportunity arose for me to travel to New York rather cheaply, and I could stay with a friend, or I could stay in a Fleabag hotel, cheap hotel. I didn't care. I was young. I wasn't thinking about luxury. I was just thinking about getting up here and checking out the scene and going to hear people that I knew I wasn't probably going to hear in where I was living, at least not on a regular basis. So I did that. So that was somewhat of a foot in the door, but I wasn't up here playing. I was just up here as a vagabond, just listening to people play and stuff, So anyway, yeah. So and so my I guess my initial mindset was that, okay, I've saved up enough money to be able to pay my rent for a year and basically live for a year, so that if nothing happens substantial to keep me here, then I could always go back.
Yeah.
Right. But fortunately, by the grace of God, that didn't happen. I got to New York, and I was able to work pretty much right away, and so I'm blessed that in that regard, because I never expected that, you know. I just thought it would be, you know, I'd be hanging around and, you know, hopefully practicing and trying to get better. And because, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, you know, you're jumping into the deep water where the sharks and the killer whales are. You know, you think about the people that do
Oh
the
man.
same thing that you want to do, that live here, and those are the same people that, you know, prior to that, you're laying in bed looking at record covers, and there they are. You're just dreaming, you know, man, you know, blah blah blah. There's, you know, there's, you know, Billy Hart, you know, oof,
Yeah.
man, you know, and you know, you're not thinking, you know, I want to be in the same pool. Well, you want to, you dream of it, but you don't
Yep.
think you're ready to be that, you know, like in that zone, you know, in that pantheon, you know what I mean? And so I was just thinking, you know, if nothing happens, I'll enjoy going out to hear a bunch of people, and I'll enjoy living in the city, and maybe I'll make some friends and blah blah blah, and then I'll split. I'll go back, you know, because, you know, I ran out of bread, you know. But like I said, it didn't happen that way, so I'm blessed in that regard, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's well, how did then you mentioned your, you know, seeing people on the covers of records and your heroes, and so you're already in the 80s you started to play, you know, with, I don't know, Joe Henderson or Sonny Rollins or Horace Silver. How did these stories, how did the gig with Sonny, for instance, happen? You remember the call, or like how was the audition? Or
I definitely remember the call. Yeah, absolutely, man. Who wouldn't, man? I mean, you know, if, you know, you hear that voice on the other end of the line, you know, it's like, I'm sure everybody has had this kind of a moment where somebody that they know you know, like, well, he has a distinctive voice that people have mimicked in the past. So, you know, like Miles, hey, it's Miles, you know, that kind of thing, or somebody like that, you know. And so he has that kind of a voice that's very distinctive. So again, this was a thing where I had never even seen Sonny Rollins play live before. I mean, of course, I had a zillion records, and I knew that he was like, I mean, that's the highest of the highest. That's the highest mountain, you know. You know what I mean? But I didn't have any. I didn't have any. I didn't. You know, it wasn't even something that I would have thought about that I would ever do. You know. And so then he called me and said, I don't even remember exactly what it was. Well, I found out later what it was he was auditioning drummers, but he didn't tell me that. He just said, we're going to be playing, you know, at this place, you know, come down, and we want you to come down and play with us. Would you be interested in coming to play? And I was like, well, yeah, you know, yeah, but, you know, but why, you know? I didn't say that. I didn't say why. I didn't say that. I was thinking to myself, why? What's, you know, what's he, why is he asking me, you know? But anyway, and how does he even know who I am or anything like that? Because again, like I said, I had never met him, or I had never been to a gig, or I didn't really have any kind of, you know, like connection, you know, with, you know, him and all that, you know what I mean? So that was that. And so, you know, of course I was on cloud nine. Man, I'm gonna go play with Sonny Rollins, you know. Wow, you know, I wonder what's going on with that, you know, but I'm gonna go, you know, I'm not gonna not go, you know what I'm saying? So I just went, and then I ran into another couple of drummers coming out of the place that I was going into. And, you know, hey man, what's happening there? Man, I'm getting ready to go play with Sonny Rollins, man. And they're like, oh yeah, I just got through playing with him. And then I'm thinking to myself, this is some kind of a, you know, this is some kind of a, you know, cattle call audition thing, you know what I mean? So anyway, so I went, I was too late now. I'm already there. So anyway, so I'm just like, well, okay, whatever. I'm going to go and I'm going to enjoy this moment. If nothing, if nothing comes of it, because I went there until that moment. I went there not expecting anything to come of it. Because I didn't know that it was an audition. I didn't think it was that. I just thought, well, maybe he just wanted to hear me. I didn't think he wanted to hear me and 100 other people. But anyway, so I went and it was great. It was so much, it was so exhilarating because it's this guy, I mean, it's like, like I said, it's like, that's like, it's like, I don't know, man. Coltrane, Monk, Bird, that's Miles. That's like, forget it, But it was. I don't know if it was fun. It was exhilarating. It was like so exciting that the excitement and the exhilaration kind of superseded the scaredness, because you're so excited that you forget to get scared or afraid, you know what I mean? And so it was great. So that's how that happened. I have no idea what prompted it prior to him calling me. No one has ever told me, and I don't know. I was actually working with J.J. Johnson at that time, the trombone player.
Sure.
A great trombone. He's up there in the same
area
with those, And so I don't know. Maybe he knew that. Maybe he knew that I was playing with, because I remember he was saying, he asked me how JJ was, and and basically said that JJ was one of the first people to hire him for a professional gig.
Exactly.
So so the hierarchy is, that let me know about the hierarchy. JJ's up there over him because he's the one that hired Sonny as a youngster, and so maybe he knew that. Well, he did know that, and I don't know if he ever heard it or anything, or if anybody said anything, but at least he knew that about me, which I was surprised at, because my initial thought was how would he even know who I was, that kind of thing.
That's incredible. And he immediately told you that you're hired on the spot, or?
No, I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I think maybe later on they called and asked if I was available for some jobs, you want to do these gigs or whatever like that, I think that's how it went down. I don't think it was like, you're hired, or whatever. Sure. I think it was more like, because I think I just walked out of there like, man, I'm on cloud 9. I just got through playing Oleo with Sonny Rollins, man.
Man.
You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not playing it with like, one of my friends or something. I'm just playing it with the cat who wrote it. You know what I mean? I mean, everybody's played that song a million times, but you never do. Once you do it with him, it's like, whoa, okay. You know what I mean? Like that.
Yeah. It's like playing Blues for Alice with Parker or something.
Right. Exactly.
Incredible.
Exactly.
Then on the other hand, Joe Henderson was also at the same time, right? Kind of, or later?
No, that was prior.
And how did Joe happen?
Joe was before. I don't know how that happened either, actually.
But if you compare,
I tell you what now that I think about it, see, I met Joe Henderson in Virginia, where I was living prior to moving to New York. And so when I met him, I was very, very interested in the drummer that was playing with him all the time was Al Foster.
Yeah.
And I was a huge Al Foster fan.
Sure.
I still am. I'm still a huge Al Foster. I mean, his pictures up on
Oh yeah. Oh shit.
Yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful.
I surround myself with these people. And so anyway, so I was asking him about Al Foster because I had discovered Al on like some records, like we were talking about records, like I had this record by this band called, no, it wasn't that band yet, but it ended up being that band. It was a David Liebman record. I had two records, a David Liebman record called, damn, what's the name of it, man?
With Al Foster?
With Al.
Really?
I can't remember the name of it now. Pendulum? Maybe it was called Pendulum. Anyway, and then I had a Dexter Gordon record with Al. And I was really into him.
Quest.
No, this is prior to Quest. This is prior to Quest, but it ended up being kind of a Quest-like band without. This record had Randy Brecker and a bass player who was living down in Virginia at the time named Frank Tusa.
Sure.
And I was playing a little bit with Frank down in Virginia. He was down there. He was like the musical supervisor for a local TV station or something. He wasn't really playing jazz, but anyway.
Yeah.
So my primary interest was Al, and I met Joe, and who was down there playing with a local rhythm section. And so we were talking, and so I was asking him about Al, and he was like, "Oh man, I'm playing with Al at the Vanguard in like 3 weeks or next month or whatever it was, and you should come up to the gig." So I was telling you that there was this situation where there was an airline that was really cheap flights, and I had 2 days off a week from my regular house gig that I was doing, and so I went up. He told me when it was, and so I went up, and I caught a couple of nights, or maybe one night, I can't remember, and it was my first time seeing Al, and they were playing at the Village Vanguard, and I went, and I sat right there next to Al, and introduced myself and everything, and actually, Al asked me to sit in, which was just some cosmic stuff, man. It was just like, man, what's this? Here I am, just like this guy, this country bumpkin up here, and Al let me sit in, and Joe kind of okayed it. And so, and I had just met Al, but he was so nice to me, and we kind of hit it off, just natural, it's really great. And I just, seeing him play just completely just kind of like it just kind of turned me around. It really kind of, it was one of those kind of epiphany
moments,
situations. Yeah, like when you see somebody that does what you do, and it makes you rethink everything. It just rearranges your whole thing. You know what I mean? So plus Joe, at that time, Joe. This is before Joe was like a big star. He was. Everybody, musicians all knew that.
Sure.
Man, this cat was, but he wasn't a big star or anything back then. And anyway, so that might have been how Joe at least knew
we were,
who I was, and and I didn't, that sitting in was not. It was not my best moment, to say the least. I was terrified, and I was like thrown. It was just like, wasn't my intention, was not to sit in. Far from it. My intention was to just, plus I had just had my mind blown from watching this cat play, and I'm just, it's weird, but that night, sitting next to me was Jocko.
Seriously.
Pastorius, the bass player.
Sure.
And he, he was patting Al on. We were sitting so close we could touch. He was patting Al on the back. Yeah, Mr. Henderson, Mr. Henderson. He was, you know what I mean. And I was sitting there, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, damn, Jocko's right here, and they're playing, and I'm sitting here, and I'm like, and Jocko's like, man, you check that out, and I'm like, whoa, this is crazy, you know what I mean? And then in the second set, Al asked me to play, and I'm like, "What? Are you kidding?" And it was horrible. It was horrible. I didn't, But anyway, so that's perhaps how that happened. And it was stupid, man. Yeah, it was stupid. It was crazy. Looking back at it now, it's funny, but it was another one of those kind of things where you're just in the moment, and it's too late you can't back out. You can't. You just have to jump in and just jump in, and you just jump in, and there you go. And then that's happened to me several times with Art Blakey. It happened with some other people, where you just these things you couldn't have paid for. You couldn't have paid for this. These things that happen cosmically, everything's lined up.
Yeah, somehow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
How was it like for you playing with Joe on the other opposite side and Sonny? I mean, because both are of course, the masters, but man, completely different also. So.
Man, I don't know, man. It's just, I mean, they're different, but they're not that different.
Exactly.
I mean, of course, Sonny is without Sonny, no Joe. So Joe is coming from Sonny in various ways, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
But as band leaders, how are they as band leaders? If you look back at it.
Well, Sonny is very self-critical. He's very self-critical. So, you never were sure if it was going good or not.
Oh shit, that's heavy.
You just kind of, I don't know, man. With Joe, it was just more like he was kind of he's like they used to call him the Phantom. He was just he would just kind of appear and just deal and then disappear, and that was it. There wasn't a lot of, at least with me, there wasn't a lot of talk unless I wasn't even around him enough, because he would show up if the gig started at 9:30, he would show up at 9:29, 9:50. Boom. Okay, ready? Boom. And then play, and then at the end,
oh wow,
gone. So there wasn't a lot of chatter. And I didn't do that much stuff with him, but the things that I did do with him, there wasn't much. There wasn't much, but he was more talkative on the telephone. Like he used to call up and talk, and then he would talk for hours.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Yeah.
But not necessarily about music, just about stuff, like regular kind of stuff, like leather goods in Spain and shoes and jackets and stuff that we were talking about, clothes and yeah, so he was kind of in his thing,
Yeah.
and so
amazing.
But they're both on such a high level, and of course, I said, Sonny is just, man, way up there at the top of the mountain, just both of them are, but Sonny is just
yeah. But it's like you playing with the guys who wrote Inner Urge, or like you said.
Again, you're playing with that. You're playing. Gin Rickshaw with Joe, and it's whew, man.
That's
it's just crazy. Like, man, it's just I mean, yeah, it's the same. It's the same. Those guys they're from that era where they're so individualistic. You know, they're
Exactly.
so themselves. It's not like I said. Joe comes out of Sonny, but he's
Yeah.
150% Joe. I mean, he just. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't confuse him with
Immediately.
anyone else. You know,
Yeah.
and same thing with Sonny. You can't really confuse him. So those kind of people are so individualistic, you know,
Mhm.
and that was the thing, to be that, you know, that was the thing, you know. It wasn't, you don't play like anybody. You I guess you borrow and you influenced by, but you don't
Mhm.
go on the bandstand and play like
Someone.
X.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I learned that from them, just not by them saying it, but just, and not just them, but all of these people, you know, Horse, Bobby Hutcherson,
Yeah, man. That
Andrew
record,
Hill, you
Mirage.
know, these people, yeah, these guys, they
Yeah.
don't, you know, they're not trying to be nobody else. They're giving it up, putting their whole thing on the line. Like, here it is, you know,
Yeah.
here's my opinion. And that's what they, you know, Buster Williams and these guys,
Yeah.
you know, they're like, you know, they got their thing, and that's what it is, you know. And that's the thing that strikes you about them, is that they're not, you know, and they talk about people and stuff, you know, that they love, and records, they know all records of whoever
For
it
sure.
is, you know, but that's not who they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's good.
That's
You know what I
what
mean? Yeah, it's like they're so them. And I you know, I guess there's a little bit of that going on now, but I don't know how defined it is now, um, at this point. But you know, I'm sure I mean, I know several people who I
Sure.
know the way that they play and everything like that, but I don't know how defined it is right now as it is with them, because like you said, if you put on, you know, immediately at Joe Henderson, you know that's not Hank Mobley, or you know it's not
Oh, yeah.
Stanley Turrentine, or you know it's not Wayne, or you know it's not
It's
Junior
bizarre
Cook.
if you think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but then when you put those other people I just named, you know it's not him. You know Stanley Turrentine ain't Joe. You know Wayne ain't, you know, Junior Cook. You know, Clifford Jordan's not, you know, Stan Getz. You know what I mean?
Dexter Gordon, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just like, boom, boom. You know, here's my opinion, and all those guys are like that. So that's kind of really what I'm trying to say about the difference between those two, is that there is no difference. They're just them.
Yeah. Yeah. They're both gods, you know, of
They're both
saxophone, of
just, yeah,
jazz.
they're both just them.
Yeah. Like, I wanted to ask you, Billy, like, how did, in the midst of all this playing with Bobby Hutcherson and Sonny, and how did native colors happen then? When was the moment you said, I will become a band leader? How did that story begin? Because it's a beautiful record. And
Oh,
how did the
wow.
story of Billy Drummond becoming a band leader occur? And that era?
Again, it wasn't anything to do with me soliciting. I haven't solicited anything my whole time. I haven't asked to be in a band, or I haven't asked to do stuff. I mean, you know, I've asked for gigs as a leader, because you have to.
Sure. That's, you know.
Or maybe somebody has told me that you should try to, you know. But no, I don't know how that happened. I had done some recordings with that record company called Crisscross
Crisscross.
Jazz, and so the company's owner was Jerry Takens. Um, he had me on some other dates as just the drummer, you know, as a sideman with people prior to that. And he asked me if you know, do you want to put something together and do a record? And I was like, well, I'd never even thought of it. I didn't. That wasn't on my list of things that I wanted to do. You know, at least not consciously. And so I, when I was presented with the opportunity, I said, okay. And I went on about putting together a band and putting together some music. And then that's how it happened. That's really it. I didn't lobby for it. I didn't solicit it. I didn't ask. I didn't,
Were you immediately comfortable in the role of a band leader?
Well, yeah, because there wasn't that much. I mean, I had good people.
Yeah.
Good musicians, really good musicians, better than me. So I didn't have to say anything. I didn't have to, and I wasn't, I've never been the type of, when I have led bands and done records, I've never been the type of person that was opposed to input from the other musicians, because I mean, a lot of people have better ideas than yourself. And so I'm open to that. And so I guess it was just like, playing with people that I wanted to play with, that I knew could play and I knew would bring it, would play well. And I was comfortable with that group of people. And so it was a pretty natural, it was comfortable. There was nothing in the way. There was no, and I've always been pretty comfortable in the recording studio. I always feel comfortable in the studio. And that record was done at Rudy's. And I think I had done a couple of records at Rudy's prior to that. So I was comfortable in that room, and I was comfortable with Rudy. And, it was just, it was kind of an easy thing. It was just like, man, I got these great people to play with. I'm in this studio. I got my drums.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
Can I play? I guess that was the most thing that was the most concerning, if I could say that. Just like, am I up to the task personally? But everything else was cool. Everything else was cool, man. You know what I mean? I mean, I was the only one that could mess it up. I know they weren't gonna mess it up. Nobody else was gonna mess it up but me. So I was that was my only concern. Don't you screw it up. So anyway, I did the best I could, and it turned out okay.
It's a beautiful record. Yeah, so, those 3 records that you did are beautiful. It's swinging like, hell. Like, it's so good. It's really,
well, like I said, I had help, man. I had help on all those all those records that I did as a leader. And I picked people that I know are going to help me, that are going to stimulate me, and inspire me to play, so that, they're helping me. They're kind of holding me up, like, and then that's good to know that you've got that, that to not have to worry about.
Definitely. Yeah. Bill, just one more question. You've played on one of my favorite records by Andrew Hill, and Dusk, and I've spoken to Marty Ehrlich and Greg Tardy, who are both on that record. And I wanted to ask you about your experience with Andrew. I mean, he's, one of my favorite composers and players, probably one of the most underrated piano players, actually. If you think about it.
Me too.
Yeah. How was that like for you?
Oh man, again, I mean, everything is this. It's all the same, man. I have to say, these people that you're mentioning and my extreme good fortune to be able to
do it. Yeah.
I mean, I always wanted to be with Fast Company, so because that helps you to get better. I always wanted to play. When I say Fast Company, I mean people that play way better than you. that are, and so so playing with him was like that. And again, it was somebody who I had been listening to all my life, on his, on all those records, on all those records that he's on and that he did as a leader.
Yeah.
And so he was part of my musical fabric, if you will. And then I had played with his contemporaries prior to that, Joe and Bobby and Charles Tolliver and those kinds of people. I had already, because they were all in his same sphere, and in fact, I think Andrew might have come a couple of times when I was playing with Bobby to the gig.
Oh, wow.
And again, I think I might have met him a couple of other times. I know I met him one time. My friend was playing drums with him. Tony Reedus, great drummer.
Yeah, sure.
He's like one of my best friends. And he was playing with him at Sweet Basil's, this club called Sweet Basil's. And I went to go see him. And at the bar was Tolliver and Joe Henderson.
Oh, wow.
So I immediately went up to them and said hello, and because I had knew them and played with them, and then Andrew came up and was talking to them, and I was there, and they kind of introduced me, but he knew me from prior to when I was playing with Bobby, and so. And then I don't know. I think he called me up sometime shortly thereafter, and he was gonna put together this band, and he had a gig. He had a gig at this place called the Knitting Factory, and that was kind of a big deal because it was almost kind of like I think it was kind of like the return of Andrew Hill, but he really hadn't gone anywhere because, like I said, prior to that, I'd seen him at Sweet Basil's playing with my friend was playing drums, and yeah. So anyway, we just did that gig, and then it was the gig was kind of a big success for him, because people were curious as to what he was going to do, and this band was similar in instrumentation than the band that he had on this record called Point of Departure. Yeah. And so it was the same sort of instrumentation, but not the same music. He had written all different, all new music, and so we did that, and then I think we did a couple other gigs, and then he said we're gonna record, and we did, and the record was it was on a small label. I don't even know if it's available anymore, but and it's kind of a secret. I'm surprised you know about it. It's kind of a secret record because not many people even know it exists. Because it was on a small label. But anyway, it was great, man. It was and a lot of my friends were in the band. Scott,
yeah, sure.
Ollie was the bass player, and he and I had played with a bunch of people together prior to that. And Marty, I had been playing with Marty's band prior to that. Marty Ehrlich, I was in his band.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
We did. I think we did 2 or 3 records. One for Inja.
Oh yeah. Wait a second.
And another one. I can't remember what the other one was called. The other one label was on, but it was anyway. I had done a lot of, and we went to Europe. We did tours and stuff with Marty. So anyway, so it was comfortable because Marty was in the band and Scotty was in the band, and then he had a trumpet player named Ron Horton who I didn't know up until that point, but all great musicians, and Greg Tardy
came
into the band after that first gig was a different saxophone player, but then Greg came into the band, and he, Greg was great and everything. So it was cool. Everybody was cool. Everybody was cool.
It's beautiful.
Everybody was okay. So it was. And so it was a nice, and we all loved Andrew. We all loved him, and we loved his music, and we wanted to do it, man. We wanted to, to play with this guy, and so that's kind of how it happened. Really, really quite naturally.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was
Amazing.
just all around great experience, man. Just like the other ones were.
Yeah. Incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Thanks, Billy, for sharing. I will not take more of your time. I could just ask you about all this stuff that you've done. But
yeah. Well, I'm glad you know about that. Because that's some. I always call that the secret record of Andrew.
Oh, really?
Because nobody really knows about that record. Because like I said, it was on a small label.
Is it Arabesque? No, it's not Arabesque, right? No. Yeah.
I can't think of the name of the label right now, but they're not in business anymore. It wasn't a big time, it wasn't like Blue Note or Verve or, Impulse or one of those, big labels like that. And it wasn't a lot like a big press and cover of Downbeat and all. It was just kind of okay, but I think it did win some kind of awards or something at the time when it came out, because and nobody writes like that. Those kind of, again, nobody plays like that. Nobody writes music like that. Same thing with like Carla Bley. Nobody writes like that. That's like some individual, all these people, Steve Kuhn. I mean, nobody plays the piano like that. Nobody. It's just like,
oh yeah, shit. You played with Steve for a long time, and Carl.
They're just like their fingerprint. They're just like, that's what they are. They're not. You can't put them in any kind of like, I don't know, style. They're their own style. You know what I mean? They're in their own style. If you try to do that, you're trying to do it like them. They're not trying to do it like anybody else. You know what I mean? Even if they are, it didn't turn out that way. Even if they're trying to write like I'm trying to write like Elmo Hope, or I'm trying to write like Duke, or no, man, it didn't come out like that, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like he didn't. Duke Ellington didn't either. He doesn't. His writing doesn't sound like anybody's, but he doesn't sound like Jelly Roll Morton or Fletcher Henderson. He got his own thing.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to ask you about Andrew. He's like, I loved researching him, all his records and compositions, and he's like Herbie Nichols or someone like that who's.
Well, he is in the fact that he's his own guy. He's just like, he's by himself. All these people really are by themselves.
Exactly.
And that's what's really nice about them. That I appreciate.
Yeah, we all do. Yeah. Cool, Billy. Thanks so much for sharing some of these thoughts. So really appreciate it.
I appreciate you including me in this. All these. Yeah. I saw that list that you sent me. All these people you've interviewed, man. Like a lot of my heroes and favorite musicians as well. So thanks for putting me in there.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time.
Dr. Jazz.